Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 13 of Guest Safety Officer. Bobby Great. It's a great day. Today, yes, I know Gary's still here. Contact your MP. Don't blame me. There's nothing I can do about it. But fortunately, we've got the marvelous Al Prescott from HZL, who's going to talk to us today about penetration testing and how it works, how you do it, and how you do it safely and effectively. So quickly, Gary, very brief. Who are you?
I'm Gary Twain-Wright. I've been in the security industry for 37 years. There you go.
Okay. And Al, take it away.
Al Prescott from HZL. Been working in the securities for a number of years, and here I am now talking to you about physical penetration testing. What I would like to say, Ian, there's a difference between physical penetration testing and cyber penetration testing. So the physical penetration testing is actually testing physical security. So whether you're going from the outside in, so sort of fence lines, buildings, asset, to the inside out, so looking at the asset, so inside a threat, so a repetitious type threat. So there's two elements to that physical side as well.
Best thing I think is, Gary, got any questions? Or I'll tell you what, first of all, I'll just give us a brief outline of how it works, and then Gary will fire away.
All right. Well, what I'll do then is if I go through the process, what normally happens. So if we were running a physical penetration test or a PPT, we would first a client would contact us with possible problems or issues, or they've got concerns. Now, it might be for insurance purposes. It might be they've been told to do some sort of audit. And we would then at that point go and identify what the client's needs are. A lot of the time they don't really know. And also it depends on who you're talking to. So if you're talking to a security manager who doesn't want you there, it can be quite negative. If you're talking to a security manager who wants you there, which in fairness, most of the time is what happens, then you're on a positive start. From there, you'd identify what they think their need is, or their statement of need. And what you might do is, from past experiences, is maybe give them some guidance. And with that, it might be that they want you to carry out a pen test without any help from the inside. They might want you to carry out a pen test with some help or with some information. So again, that's the sort of thing you've got to clear up. From that point, we would get a client agreement because at the end of the day, if you're on somebody's premises without their permission, it's trespass. And so you need to get your client agreements in place. You need to get all your permissions and consent, identify what their policies are, look at out of bounds areas, confirm what would happen if you are compromised, or if one of the members of staff actually, the power of hello, actually who you are. From that point, and once we've established that, we would do an open source intelligence recce to gather as much information online as we could. From there, we do a confirmatory recce, or an initial recce and a confirmatory recce. And then we go into the exploitation. After that exploitation, you write a client report with recommendations. And on that, you would have the positives as well as the negatives, because a lot of the time there are a lot of positives. We've done a couple where there's no way we were getting past the security. We did a couple of bonded warehouses. No way were we going to get past those security teams. So we had to find different ways of gaining entry into the establishment, which you do. And it depends on what they want to test. Like I say, from that point, you'd produce your client report. And again, that might change depending on whether or not the client report, but the task. If you're doing a rural area, the approach would be different to if you're doing an urban area, or if you're doing a factory, or you're doing a hotel, or you're doing a sports ground, you're doing a government building, you're doing a non-government building. It sort of varies really, but the process doesn't change. So the client agreement, permission to carry out the task, open source intelligence recce, social media, social engineering, initial recce, confirmatory recce, task, client report, recommendations, And probably more importantly as well is making sure the whole time you're working within the rule of law, so data protection, human rights, if you're working with government buildings, all those sort of things. So that's the sort of process, really.
Gary?
Okay, thanks for that, Al. So, first things first. I mean, what do people really want testing? If they're asking for you to come in, what are they actually testing? What's the overall view? I'm not asking a specific client. What are they actually looking for?
A lot of the time, it's for confirmation that their security measures in place are fit for purpose. So if they've done an operational requirement and they've identified sort of what the levels of risk are and whatever else, they may well then want you to just confirm that their risk management plan works, or if they've got some concerns, it's just to identify and to either confirm or deny those concerns. Really, does that?
Yeah, it does. So you're highlighting certain situations which they're requiring to look at, i.e., say someone's saying we want you to get into a building somewhere. I mean, what's the first thing you guys do? Have you always said you've done this? Forget the background work. You've done the paperwork. Saying, but going up there, the first things, what are you doing there?
I think firstly, if somebody said I want to get in a building, I'd ask why. And then why do you want me to do that? Is it because your CCTV isn't working? Is it because you think your pass system's not working? Is it because you want us to, to breach your, if you're looking at hotels, can we get into the principals, not the principals' rooms necessarily, but guest rooms, especially if it's a high-end hotel. If somebody's paying sort of £4,000 or £5,000 a night for a hotel room, they'll quite happily leave, £5,000, £6,000, £7,000 watches lying around. So can you breach the door?
Right.
So can you pass your way through and get up the stairs, open a door and go in? So it's identifying, first of all, what they really want and what that requirement is. And sometimes they don't know. But it's a difficult one. So from that point, we would have to sort of maybe narrow it right down, and we'd have at least 2 conscious contacts within the environment we're working in, who are conscious that we're coming in, and they're normally the people who would have identified what the need is. So going back to the question, if you wanted to go into a building, what is it they actually want, and what is it they want to...
For people watching who won't know, when we use the term conscious contact, what do we mean by that? Because obviously we're not talking about we're not talking about in the medical, and I'm not trying to demean it, but I just want to make sure that people watching it fully understand.
That's fair. That's a fair question, Ian. So what it would be is, let's say that a managing director of a company got us in and said, I want you to test all our access systems and see if they're easy to breach. So that person would then be conscious that we're there. So he's a contact of us, conscious we're going to be on site. Well, we would always have 2 conscious contacts, and normally it would also be the security manager or the head of security, because that just makes things a little bit easier, because that person is aware of the site requirements. And so if somebody is compromised, they can phone up either of the conscious contacts, so that if people do think you're trespassing or they're not happy, or you show them the letter or your letter of authority and they don't believe it, you need to have somebody that people can talk to, and the conscious contact will know everything that you want to achieve.
So obviously we were going through the penetration. We got the idea, as you said, you stated what you do and what behind. Now let's forget about the mechanical stuff and electrical features, because we deal with mainly people, and if we look at the guest safety point of view or security officers out there, I mean, let's look at them as the human beings, because there's always a human element which is on this side. So my question to you is, let's look at failure. Where do you find the most information comes from? Is it from the security officer? Is it from, is it just from the visual things, or is it interacting with that person?
I think it varies across the board, but interacting with the person and the social engineering with those people is fantastic. So if you've got, the thing is, most people are nice and most people want to be helpful. And if you're looking at, the security officer on the ground, the security officer on the ground is the big thing they're pushed with is customer service. And a lot of them are very, very good at it. And so when you go in to ask and you ask for help and all the other bits, a lot of the time they're quite happy to help because it takes away some of the boredom in some cases. But what I would say sometimes, if you get past a security officer, it's not necessarily the fault of the security officer per se. It could be that. So we've tried to breach some areas where there's been you've got wristbands, but also you've got a barcode to get through. Now, if you don't have the wristband and you can't get the barcode, then the security officer won't let you in. If you go into a venue where they're going, oh, don't worry, it's fine, or the wristband is just an orange wristband or a blue wristband with no writing on it, then you can't really hold that security officer, responsible for allowing somebody through with a blue wristband on, if all people have got blue wristbands. If you've got a wristband and it says, the event name and the event time and everything else on, and you haven't got the right wristband on, and that security officer lets you through, then clearly there's failings on their side. So I think you can social engineer your way through, you can blag your way through, and that works. That can work quite well, because what you do find as well is if you get past the first layer, the first defense layer, people normally think you should be on the site, so they don't challenge you. So there isn't a challenge culture. And that's not necessarily just the fault of the security officer or the receptionist, because once you're in there, if people don't think you should be in there, why aren't they challenging you? Why isn't that power of hello, which was pushed out by CPNI and now MPSA? How good is that power of hello? Hello, can I help you? Because if you're trying to scam something, you disappear, and if you have to customer service, it's fantastic.
That's the point which I'm trying to get across here. We spend a lot of time for safety officers, security officers, on the customer service orientated, and the information. I mean, as I say, in the past I've done this job many times, and I've always found it's speaking to people. They literally flow information, whether they're meant to the way or not, but they like to talk and they throw it all out. And one thing I always find is while they're talking and giving you the information, they're not thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about their terrorist situation. They're not thinking about anything on that point, but they have to coerce through either boredom or bits and pieces. And the amazing amount of stuff they're prepared to tell and give that information willingly without realizing. I mean, obviously you're finding the same thing. And is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing that the customer service is so much? And should they be putting things in place to stop this and get these guys to think about it?
I think I think sometimes it depends on the briefings they have before they come on the tasks as well. So I don't know whether you've seen the scan video, which is a really, really good video that was put out by CPNI, which talks about the para hello. And I think if more people saw that, security officers saw that, that would do a power of good, because it highlights that whole hostile reconnaissance bit. So there is that element to go to be hello and to help, which you've got to do, because customer service at the end of the day is part of the responsibilities and the duties of a security team. But on the other side of it, they need to be aware of is somebody asking those wrong questions. And we've had some security officers where we've tried to social engineer, and they've just gone, "Oh, that's great, but I can't answer that question. I'll just get my line manager." And you're trying to walk away, and they go, "No, hold on, you stay there. I'll just get on the phone to him now." And that there's a camera now on you. So but that goes down to the team that the security officer is working with, probably the initial training they've had, and the briefing they had before they came on task.
Sorry, again, it's just a clarified terms, because we're talking about social engineering.
Social engineering.
What do we mean by social engineering?
It's sort of a generic term for socially manipulating a situation. So is it sort of talking to somebody, trying to get somebody to coerce somebody? Is it about sort of when you baseline somebody? So if you think about those elements of baselining, you're looking at body language, you're looking at their biometric body language. What are they wearing? What are the atmospherics? How close are they to you? All those things that you're looking at when you're profiling something or somebody or a situation or a place. That would be, you'd be taking all that into account before you spoke to somebody. Or it might be, if you see it on LinkedIn, somebody sends you a friend request on LinkedIn, and they're not linked to any of your friends. They've got nothing to do with you. Once you press, we'll be mates, then how far out does that go? Because somebody else will pick up on oh, well, they're mates with Ian, so I'll friend them. And then the next person says, oh, they're mates with, you know, Ian and Al, and all of a sudden they're mates with Gary as well. So that circle of trust then sort of goes out to something that's not a circle of trust. So social engineering is about socially sort of manipulation, I suppose, in some ways. And as Gary alluded to earlier, the you know, some security officers, because they're bored, they'll just chat to you and they'll talk to you because it's making them sort of, you know, it's passing their time. They maybe feel they're doing a worthwhile job. There's all sorts of different reasons.
All right. Because one thing I found over the years, I mean, working in different companies, bits and pieces, I found, let's look at events and let's nightclubs and events. They're probably one of the most easiest places to penetrate. Just the fact is, large amount of staff, briefings are pretty poor, pretty tame, and obviously a lot of guys stand around for 12 hours, get bored, and they talk. Absolutely. And in other places you can go to, the security really on point. As you said, the briefing is very important. What is the way forward on this penetration? How can we make penetration, you know, and it's be justified in the point where it helps the people on the ground? You know, I mean, this was about is people, you know, you're going to places. How can we make this a bit more professional and a bit more worthwhile? It's understandable.
I think if you're looking at sort of looking at defeating a penetration test or proving your security works, I think it goes back to the briefing, but I think it's making people aware of what hostile reconnaissance is, making people aware of you know, how people can operate, what the threat is to their particular environment. So everybody goes on about sort of terrorism, and terrorism clearly is a threat. Of course it is, and I'm not you know, I'm not sort of playing that down. But actually, if you're looking at what is it somebody wants to do when they go to a nightclub, is it because they want to? It goes back to that. What's that aim? So if somebody's going to a nightclub, why are they penetrate? Are they seeing if they can go in so they can just take drugs in? So it's an easy way to get drugs in and then sell them. Is it because you want to go in and see if you can? You just want to test the security, see if people can go in, test purchasing type thing underage. So I think it's making giving people that awareness of what, first of all, a hostile reconnaissance is. So people looking at a site to try and exploit it. Getting everybody, the power of hello for me, I think, is one of the best things that's come out in the last sort of God knows how many years in security. Just getting people the confidence to go up and say hello to somebody if they think it's suspicious. If I give you an example of that, I was at Westminster Station and I was waiting for a colleague of mine, and it was raining outside, and I was looking, so I wasn't looking particularly smart. And a member of the TfL staff came up, and all he said was, "Excuse me, sir, can I help you?" And I went, "No, I'm waiting for a friend." And he went, "No, that's fine." He says, "Is your friend coming by tube, or is your friend coming sort of from the outside?" He says, "Oh, he's coming from the outside." He went, "Oh, right, okay. Are you both going by tube? Because if you are, then I can probably help you with your directions." I went, "No, we're going to sort of just go from here." He went, "Oh, well, that's fine, sir." I said, "I'll just be over there if you need me." And I thought that was brilliant, because at no point was he aggressive, at no point was he rude. He basically said, you know, what I took from it is, "I'm watching you. And, you know, I'll be over there. So let's see what happens." And that linked on both sides to me. That was that sort of customer service being really, really friendly. But actually, if I was somebody suspicious, I'd be on my toes. And so I think if we could get more of that out to security teams, security guards, security officers, I don't like the term security guards, security officers, people within CCTV studios, CCTV control rooms, I think that would work well. But a big one is the people in the buildings also have a responsibility. It's not just the security officers or stewards. You know, if we're using events, as you were discussing, it's anybody else who works in that building. If they don't recognise somebody, or they're uncomfortable, because if you're uncomfortable for a reason. And so that power of hello, or the power to challenge, is fantastic. Not everybody wants to challenge, of course they don't. But if they feel something suspicious and they don't want to challenge, then they should be talking to the security team.
I find that, yeah, what I have found over the years is, you've just hit the nail on the head. It's the confidence of the security officers to have the power of hello. I mean, it does work wonders. You've just explained, you know, when you're in the train station, and that person literally said, watching you, talking to you, it's in place, and it's also made you feel comfortable. I mean, we've all been there and worked in situations where security don't do their job, you know, and penetration is easy to get into places because they just haven't got that confidence for the power hello. you know, how can we change that, and how can that be done to improve it?
I think, sorry if I
sorry.
could just say there, because I just want to tie this in, because I spent the first part of my career after coming out of the army in retail, and shoplifting it's crime, you know, theft, and we used to have to always be on our guard and use customer service as a way of deterring people who we suspected may be involved in shoplifting. And so we would go and exactly say, "Oh, how are you doing? Have you found your colour? What are you looking for, the large size in that?" Etc. etc. So many things, and it's all friendly, big smile on your face, but you're letting them know that you're there. The other side on that as well, Al, and I'm not sure, you said, it was interesting, you said you were looking a bit scruffy on your thing. Was the person who approached you scruffy, or were they well presented?
No, they were as well presented as you know you could expect for somebody who's been working for a few hours. You know, it wasn't somebody in a collar and tie. It was somebody who was a blue collar worker.
Yeah.
You know, which was useful. So that person clearly had some sort of security awareness. They weren't a security officer. They were a member of staff. You know, and probably one of the ticket collector type people. I don't know the terminology, so apologies to any ticket collectors if I've upset them. But I think but probably going back to one of Gary's questions, how do you do that? Well, that person's been trained. That person will have seen probably the Power of Hello video. That person will have been briefed up on what potential threats are. That person may have been working when the 7/7 on the underground attacks were there. So there's lots of different reasons. But I think if for our staff, if we were doing sort of CP jobs, we would give them briefings on, you know, what we think the potential threat is. So once you know what the asset is and what you're protecting, you know that how might people want to, you know, what method of attack somebody might want to use for want of a dramatic word, but what method of you know, achieving their aim, how would they do that? And that then gives you your protective measures you can put in place. I think going back to sort of the original bit about sort of why do pen testing people need to be registered, because if you haven't got the training to carry out pen testing in the correct way and go through the whole of that process, as we spoke earlier on, then there's the opportunity that somebody will put a report that isn't fit for purpose. But I think also if you've had security managers, sort of fairly senior personnel coming on the pen testing course, because this is a level 4 course that we're running, or that gets run, you would then have the knowledge that you could pass down your chain of command to your subordinates, but also pass up the chain of command to your, you know, the bosses, to make sure that you know, security is important, because you're protecting an asset. And if you don't want to protect the asset, then why have you got the security? You know, they're there to protect people and property. And you know, you need to pay for that. And if you've got good security, then you know you're never going to be able to. You can never say it's 100%. But if somebody walks past and sees if security is effective, they're less likely to breach your place than go somewhere else. And that, you know,
you just mentioned you're running a course, as we know you're running a course. You talk about registered. Where would these people be registered with?
Well, there'll be an organisation that will which will own the register. So I would imagine it'd be commonly agreed an organisation with credibility. So that will remain to be seen. So the register will.
So it's not in play at present, then.
It's not at this moment, but I would imagine it will be within the next sort of 6 months. There will be a register for, and that will be for companies that carry out penetration testing, or this is what I hope it would be, for companies that are going to carry out penetration testing, but then individuals as well that are going to be carrying out penetration tests. And all that will, I would like to think, that what that's going to do is that show that those people have competency and they have capability to produce, the to a standard or perform to a standard.
Do you think, I mean, one of the things that Gary and I and Guest Safety Officer lobby group are pushing in particular is competence, the need for competence over compliance. Do you think that that running pen tests can actually aid competency or the development of it?
Oh, absolutely. Because if you pen test something and you breach something, then clearly there's a level of somewhere there's a lacking of a level of competency. And why is that? Now that if we go back to our sort of earlier analogy of people letting people with orange wristbands on with no writing on, then that's not necessarily the fault and assessing the competency of the security operator. That's probably assessing the competency of somebody who's organised it, who's wanting to save some money because they want to just give an orange wristband instead of an orange wristband with the event name and number on. I think if you've got security officers say that English isn't their first language, and clearly they've not been tested when they've done their security officers course with the SIA, and they've slipped through the net, and they're sat on there, and you're asking questions, and they're not capable of answering your questions, or they're not capable of reporting, a possible breach through to the control room because their English is poor, or the person in the control room's English is also poor, then that's gonna high levels of competence. Even though that person might have a badge, so therefore they're compliant, but actually they're not competent. And really, they have the badge. But I mean, that's a different discussion, and I know it's something that you discuss regularly, both on and offline, and it's a valid point, and it's a very good point. But I think, go on, sorry, go.
Just work on that. I mean, if they're going to bring people in to do pen testing, that's competency on the business itself. They're very competent to try and prove that. But say when we start moving down the chain of command, it always seems to fall back, and it falls back on the human element, the human factor, isn't it?
It depends on what you're doing, because we would do pen testing on bits on where maybe there isn't a human element. So there's always going to be a human element, but actually what you're doing is you are, if you've done a social engineering, somebody's going to be on holiday. So what you've done is you've gone and made an appointment with that person, or you've told the people that you've made an appointment with that person, and you've gained entry into those sets of offices, and then you're sat in that room and you are videoing all sorts of different bits and pieces and sensitive information. Then of course there is that element because somebody's left that out in the first place, and there isn't a clear desk policy or whatever those policies are. Now, if the organisation has operating procedures in place and says they should do those sort of things, or it's a minimum service level agreement or whatever, then there's a human failing by the individual that's left that document out. If you're looking at a situation where they should have put them away, then that's one element. If it's not in the policy for them to put them away, then that gives you the opportunity to put that in your client report, and for the client then to put in a new regime. So I don't think it's always the human element of a security officer, because we've done some breaches where the security teams are absolutely spot on, and there's no way you getting through their layers of security. We've had bits where 2 days before a security officer's identified somebody with facial recognition, or not identified with facial recognition, but they've picked them up 2 or 3 times where they've been doing initial recce, confirmatory recce, and they then tried to breach, and they just not got in, which is a lesson learned on our side. If you're using the initial recce, are you going to put that person in the building? So it's a vast subject, and there's lots of different sort of ways I suppose it depends on what you're actually trying to achieve, what you're breaching, what are you trying to achieve. So going into a sporting venue, are you looking at breaching that sporting venue on a day that, say, a football match is on, or are you looking at getting in 2 days before the football match and putting in a mobile phone that you can then ring when a presenter's on TV and it sort of place who ate all the pies or something along those lines. You know, why are you doing your pen test?
Well, I mean, as you say, it's a vast subject. I mean, we've had a brief overview of this because I know we're running out of time with this. And also, we need to cut it short. But what I think we need to look at this in a little bit more details in each section and break it down. Because as I say, we've got the events, you've got corporate, you've got going to stadiums. It's a vast, vast subject. And I think, you know, not just for the people out there, the security officers out there, and people who are watching this, they need to have an idea in more detail. What, you know, we need to break this down into little more sections to have a look at this in far more detail. Would you be happy to do that out at a later date?
Yeah, it would be. I mean, what we have got in the meantime, on our website, we've got blogs on our website that cover some different pen test sites. So we've done hotels, stadiums or sports, close protection, because especially when you're looking at the high wealth families, you know, pen testing is quite important within the CP environment. And again, not everybody knows how to do it. They have a perception of how they do it, and they think just climbing over a fence or getting in a window. But what is it you want to achieve? Is it, you know, is it embarrassing the client? Is it affecting reputational risk or your principal? Sorry, is it, you know, about reputational risk? Is it about threat to the principal? Is it about stealing the paintings while they're on holiday, or the jewelry? So yeah, I'd definitely be quite happy to come back and do something on each stage.
I think we need to look at that point, because it is. We could be here all night, and there's so much I want to discuss with you. I'm sure Ian's got a couple of questions, only a couple, but if we could pinpoint those little bits, because I think it's the people on the grounds we're here for, and also the clients need to see this as well. They've got to understand, you know, when they have these teams in place, whether it's CP events and what have you, they need to understand what their job role is and appreciate that more. You know, it's not just, you know, as we said earlier on, customer service is the forefront. You know, blah, blah, blah. But if they're not asking the power of hello and asking those questions, it's pointless. You're in, you've done the job, and you need to be what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, is it the sole responsibility of the security officer to stop the pen testing or stop a pen tester? Because at the end of the day, I would say yes in some cases, because a pen tester in some cases replicating hostile recce when they're doing their initial recce of the site. And so if a pen tester can get in, then somebody who wants to cause harm and damage could get in, whether it's through a, you know, terrorist, whether it's a state actor, whether it's a criminal, they can all, you know, gain access as well. So you're right. If we're looking after the sort of the coalface or the grassroots, or, you know, the boots on the ground, then the chain of command needs to understand what the problem is. And the problem with that, which is another story, isn't it, is what management training do people have?
Again, you're crossing the T's and dotting the I's there. I mean, and what people do forget, I mean, what you did highlight was the fact is, if you are working for a client, and one of the biggest things which we've known in the past is celebrities, you know, is it there? You know, are they trying to get information on them? Are they trying to get background information on bits and pieces? I mean, that needs to be highlighted in a big way, because I speak to a lot of CP guys out on the ground, and I have no idea, and I don't even think about that side. You know, what's behind done. Is the nanny safe, you know, etc. I think we should need to investigate that far more down and just open up the can of worms, so people start realizing it's not just you do a course, you rock up, and then, you know, I'm deployed on a site, on an event, on a hotel. It's not just that point. You've got a big, vast responsibility for the safety of everyone there, not only yourself but the customers and the place you're working.
So I agree, and I think on the CP side, because the CP in itself is a vast subject. And I think once you're starting to look from the pen testing and you're looking at high wealth families, it's not just about maybe the family home. It might be that actually, as part of the CP team, you've got wider responsibilities within the security remit, and not necessarily just. Again, we're going off track here a little bit, but looking at, you know, RST and RST. Sometimes you get an RST and all they do is throw a couple of security officers and pay them minimum wage.
That's
and
right.
You're looking after the client's assets here. And you're paying them nothing. And what does this person know? So yeah, you are. You know, I know we're straying off on that, but it's again, it's about what people are paying. It's about people subcontracting and then subcontracting and subcontracting. You know, there's huge amounts of so many rabbit holes you could go down.
Absolutely. Go on, Ian.
Yeah. So my question is fairly simple. I mean, I'm not sure, you know, I understand you've got a little bit of experience in CP work, Al. I mean, you know, I think you might have some somewhere in the distant past. But the question I want to ask is this, is if I am a guest safety officer at this moment in time, involved in security, will becoming a pen tester, a good one, a competent pen tester, enable me to earn good money?
Depends when anybody's willing to pay you, Ian.
But no, not me. We're not talking, because we all know they won't pay me anything, Cal.
I think it depends on it's like anything, Ian. You know, you can do a course and you can be the best at it in the world, but if people aren't willing to employ you, then it's not going to happen. If somebody is going to employ you, can you make decent money? It depends on what decent money is as well.
So you know, that's so using, yeah, I appreciate that, Al. That's cool. But on a serious note now, if you can find the right environment, so that's the other thing about being part of this, taking this course or taking this career route, who are the best people or the people that you should be looking to go and work for if you've invested this money?
I suppose with us, most of our clients that come on our courses are from companies. And so they're sending people on the courses so that they've got the qualification for insurance purposes, for competency reasons, compliance, because we do write a report on them at the end as well, and highlight their positives and their negatives and where their strengths and weaknesses are. I think if you're going out as an independent, then yes, there will be work. And I think if the registration comes into place, and the drawback with that is there will be a cost. There's going to be. If somebody wants to be registered, as Gary had said earlier, who's going to own the register? If somebody's going to own the register, somebody's got to pay for it. So people would have to pay to be registered. I would assume. I can't say that, but I would assume that's the case. And I think if that happens and there's going to be a registration, and if something does, if Martyns Law does eventually sort of get through, and people are saying that, you know, everybody's got their risk management plans in place, they've got all the bits and pieces they need in place, then I would assume that those plans would have to be tested and they'd have to be pen tested. So I would see that that's where there's going to be some sort of opening. But what I would never say, I mean, for me, when we run a course, we never promise anybody that there'd be work. We never tell them there's big bucks in it. If we're going to use somebody, we will talk to them and we will tell them what we will pay them as a daily rate, or, you know, when they come on the books, because they would have to come on our books for insurance purposes for the short period that they're working as operators. So their daily rate would be their daily wage, in essence.
Yeah.
Obviously, we pay their taxes and all the other sort of bits that go with it. But is there work there? There is at the moment, because we're filling the courses up. But mostly with people from companies. Can individuals do it? Yes. I would seriously think about it, because it's not a cheap course. You know, it's £1,800 the course plus VAT, so it's not a cheap course. That's from us. But then that is on the qualification framework. But what I would say is, you know, if you're thinking about doing it, think about it seriously, because it's a lot of money to spend. And you want a return on your investment.
Perhaps young Gary can pop down and you know, and have a look and pen test the pen testers.
Yeah, no, we're happy with that. Yeah, we one of the things with us, and you probably know, I've known you a long time, Ian, and we're transparent.
Yeah, I know.
Come and have a look at us. We've got nothing to hide, unless we sign non-disclosures and confidentialities, of course.
Yeah.
But then you wouldn't know that, because we wouldn't tell you. Because we've signed a non-disclosure.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's fantastic. Well, I'll leave it. Obviously, you know, my operational days are over. In fact, the only operations I'm likely to get are on the NHS to repair my shattered body. But beyond that, Al, have you got any final words to say?
No, I just thank you for get me on to talk about the physical penetration testing side of stuff. I think it is something that is important. I think the register is going to be important because I think it will probably protect some of the security officers on the ground, because it will make sure that if people who do the course, when they're carrying out the pen testing, they'll do them correctly. And what they won't do is blame little Johnny, the security officer, because little Johnny let them in, when actually the fault may lie three levels above, the security officer.
That's brilliant. Any quick words there, Gary?
Quick words. I'd like to sum it up, but I know we've run out of time. But the fact is, as I said, let's get Al back on, and let's break this down into sections and look at it in sections, and then we can dive deeper into it and work on it and get that information out to the people on the ground. I think that's very important. And I'd love to come along and have a look at you on the courses. And
yeah, you're welcome, Gary. I'll get you some dates over, mate, and you come up.
Please, love to.
Yeah.
So you're not going to do your usual bit,
No, you're doing that right now, Ian, because you started it.
No, dear me, I can't even remember it. I'm too old.
I'll do it for you, Ian. I'd just like to say thank you everyone for watching this video. And if you like the content we do, please like and subscribe. We've got information going out every week. If you've got any more questions you'd like to know about Al or any other stuff we've done in the past, please feel free to direct message myself or Ian, or put a wording on below. And thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah, it's been great, Al. As always, it is a pleasure to see you. Many thanks all, and peace out.